Hi, I'm Dale Beaumont, and welcome to this presentation for Hands Across the Water. Right now, I'm here with the founder of Hands Across the Water, Peter Baines, and we're going to be having a chat about the story of Hands Across the Water, how it came about, and what it looks like today. Peter, thanks for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks, Dale.
All right, so tell us, how did Hands Across the Water come about? Walk us through the story and the timeline.
Yeah, sure. So I was working in Thailand after the 2004 tsunami, and was working over there identifying those who died. And I spent a number of months working over there, and on my last rotation, I met a group of children who had all lost their homes, lost their parents, and were living in a tent. And with a colleague of mine from the UK who I was working with, we reached an agreement and said, let's try and do something for these kids, let's build a home. And over a phone call, Hands started. And it was a pretty simple concept and had no idea where it would lead, but that was the origins.
Okay, tell us what Hands Across the Water looks like today, and then we're going to go back and fill in the pieces along the way. What is it, and how does it work?
Yeah, it's certainly a lot different organisation now, and we've now passed 15 million Australian dollars that we've raised since we started. We still stand true to the point that we don't spend any donors' money on administration or fundraising. We have 7 homes all across Thailand. We support over 300 kids, and in a really a cool sign of where we're going is that we have 29 of those kids all studying at university. So that gives a bit of an overview as to where we are today.
So tell us about the experience and what it was like representing the Federal Police, and what was your work there, and what was it like for you personally, having this experience? I'm guessing it's something that you'd never want on any other person. What was it actually like, and how did it change you as a person?
Yeah, it was certainly it was a unique experience, and I'd worked in my career as a forensic practitioner had been investigating scenes of death and homicide and suicides, and so for 20 odd years in New South Wales Police I was accustomed to dealing with death, but certainly not on the scale that we saw in Thailand.
And tell us about the scale.
Yeah, well, I'd worked in Bali after the bombings, and we had 202 people who lost their lives, and I remember sitting in the airport on my way home from Bali, talking with a colleague saying that would be the biggest thing we'll ever be involved in. But next thing, 2 years later, we're in Thailand, and we had 5,395 bodies that were recovered. And the process of identifying them was something that went for over 12 months. And even to today, there's 400 bodies that remain unidentified. And the majority of them were in an area called Khao Lak, which is an hour and a half north of the Phuket airport. And arriving at this one temple, there was 3,500 bodies that laid on the ground. And of course, that was a scale that no one who worked there, and there were 450 forensic practitioners from around the world who would deploy into Thailand. No one had ever seen the scale of death and destruction that we were dealing with from an identification point of view as what was in Thailand.
And tell us about how you met these children, and what it was like, because that's the other part of the tragedy, is not the people that died, as sad as that is, but the people that were left behind.
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about the people you met, the children and the families that had lost loved ones.
It was my third tour, and during the work, each time I was over there, I was meeting families who would come to collect the bodies of their loved ones. And as I said, on the third occasion, I was invited by a colleague that I was working with to go out and see the kids, and heard about the story of the kids, and from there, and it might sound strange, but it wasn't something that I went, I've got to do something. It wasn't the epiphany, it wasn't my life has changed from meeting the kids. It was when I returned to Australia, because in my forensic career I'd always seen the victims of crime and victims of disaster, and it was just this invitation to do something that changed it. And we said, well, let's try and build them a home. And meeting the kids at the time, that was the symbol that represented what we're doing. But of course it's changed now as to the integral part they play in my life.
So these kids were living in a tent, and it was a simple decision to let's build them a home. And so what did you do next? How did you go through that process, and how did that journey start?
It was a simple and yet naive decision, and I guess a lot of small business might start out that way too, as it seems good at the time, and not really understanding the complexities or what would be involved. And So I started my fundraising through speaking on the corporate circuit as a leadership speaker, and I was paid to do that. And in the early days, I was using the funds that I was paid to go into the donations. And as I spoke and told stories, people donated money, and that was then there were a number of people from across the globe who contributed to building the first home. And it wasn't until I went there for the opening of the first home, I thought, well, what happens now? Who supports the kids? Who supports the staff? Where does the funding come from for their meals, their education, their health, the salaries of the staff? And it was really when I opened the first home that I went, this is a long-term that commitment is required, and returned to Australia with a different focus, a different mindset. That building the home wasn't the answer. In some ways, it provided more challenges, and it provided them with a beautiful home, but that certainly wasn't the end of the story for them.
And how big was this home, and how many children then started living in this first home?
The first home was built for 32 children, and that was a very comfortable home for 32 children. But within 12 months, the numbers had doubled, and we had 64 kids. And
how did that happen?
After a crisis or disaster, and I've worked in places such as Japan after the tsunami of 2011, Saudi Arabia after the floods in Jeddah, Bali, Thailand, Australia, lots of organisations, government, NGOs, charity and corporate turn up to help. And they stick their flag in the ground and they say, we're here. But too many leave too quickly. And 6 months on, when they pack up their tents and leave, well, the message it says to the community is you're on your own. So as a lot of these organisations started withdrawing from Thailand, their work was done, well, there was homes needed for the children. And there were families that were in desperate need, and the numbers continued to grow. And so we ended up with 64 kids, and so we built another home. And to the point now where we have 107 children. So our numbers have never gone down. Lots of the kids have come and gone, which is a good thing, and as they've grown, they've moved on, but the demand is there, and we're now about to sign off and build a new room just for babies, because we now have 17 babies under the age of 5, and the government says they need their own accommodation. So the work there is certainly ongoing.
So tell us about some of the people that were there on the ground at the very beginning, the people that were instrumental in caring for these children, the 32 that became 64 and continued to grow from there. Tell us about some of these amazing people.
That you're right, they are amazing people. And the director of the home is a lady by the name of Kunrachana, and she was working for the Duang Prateep Foundation in Bangkok at the time, which is an NGO supporting the poorest communities of Thailand in the slums of Klong Tui. And when she heard about the tsunami, the Duang Prateep Foundation sent some resources down, and Kunrachana left her family and went down to support this community, and indeed these children that were living in a temple at the time. And she had the tent built and committed to be there for 2 years to support them. 10 years on, she's still there and remains a director, and most of the staff that are in our home there lost someone, lost children, lost parents, or indeed their husbands or wives from the tsunami. And so for them, this provides meaningful employment, but it's also, there's a much deeper story to all of the staff than what might first appear.
And tell us about some of the children, and I'm guessing a lot of them were left as orphans after their parents had passed through the tsunami, but clearly having been over 10 years now, there's lots of other children that have, like you say, come and gone. Tell us about some of those beautiful kids.
And they are, and having been there a number of times, you know how beautiful the kids are and how happy they are. And I think that's the thing I hear a lot from people who, there'll be a reluctance in some people saying, I don't want to go and visit because it's going to be sad, I'll feel guilty, and I'll want to take the kids, and what they have in their mind when we talk about an orphanage, for example. And it's really interesting, the Thai language doesn't have the word orphanage in it. So we refer to it just as a home. And it's the kids' home, and it's a beautiful home. It's filled with colour, it's filled with light, and thanks to the gorgeous staff we have, it's filled with love. And the kids are that are there. Some of them, they do have family, but the family are incapable for a number of reasons of caring for them. And then there's probably about a third of the kids who have no one at all. And but they're remarkable children. There's a real diversity. You know, there's the kids who are just you know, nothing but villains, and then there's, you know, I guess when we look at some of the kids, for me, what we're doing is represented by a young man by the name of Game, and he came to us at the age of 12. He'd lost his parents and was living with his auntie, and his auntie had an abusive husband, and they forced Game to leave school at the age of 12, and that would have condemned him to a life of very manual labour, such as in the rubber plantations, or something equally as hard and limiting in his career. And when they went to school to pull him out, school contacted Cwnrotjina and said, could he live with you at Bantham Nam Chai, the Hands home? And she said yes, of course. So he moved in and he lived with us, and he was able to return to school. And he finished secondary school, went on to high school, and then enrolled in university. Was the first of our kids to enrol in uni, and in January this year he graduated with a law degree. And his future now, what the opportunities that lie before him, they're endless and very different to what they would have been if he'd been working in a rubber plantation from the age of 12. And so we've got kids who have just been kids, and then we've got kids who are now turning into young adults who are contributing in a very meaningful way back to the community in which they've come.
Now, I want to ask you, as an Australian, why Thailand? Some people would say there's a lot of needs here in our own backyard, and there's needs in lots of other places around the world. Why have you chosen Thailand as the country where you're going to do all this great work?
You're right, there's lots of needs everywhere, and you can't wrap your arms around everyone. And it's a case of, for us, it's doing what we do and do it well. And why Thailand? It's pretty simple, is that was the connection I had from working over there for several months, identifying those from the tsunami, the bodies from the tsunami. And when I met the kids, it just seemed easy to say yes, and now it'd be wrong to leave. And I get opportunities to take hands into different countries and different projects all the time. At least on a monthly basis, I have a conversation with someone who asks for our support. But as you know, and as members of Business Blueprint know, growth has to be sustainable, and you can't take every opportunity that comes to you. And if we were to move outside of Thailand, unless we did it really well, there's a potential we'd compromise the level of care, the standard of care that we have. So our growth is considered, and we've moved to the 7 homes, but there's a reason for all of that growth, and I don't foresee in the next couple of years that there will be growth outside of Thailand, but I never thought that would be where we are either.
All right, let's tell us about the expansion that happened from that 1 home. How did it become 2, 3, and then on to 7?
So the need to build the second home is very clear. That was just because of demand. From that, then we built a centre at a place called Ban Nam Kem, the worst affected area in all of Thailand, and that cost us $1.4 million to build, and that provides childcare and resources that weren't needed prior to the tsunami. And prior to the tsunami, the kids were taken care of by their extended family. But when you take away that extended family, who looks after the kids, and how do the parents go to work? So we built this centre, and it also provides a refuge area in case of another tsunami. From that, we then took our first project, which was outside of that real focus from the tsunami. It was a place called Yosaton, and a beautiful home called Home Hug, run by an amazing lady by the name of May Thill. And it's a home for kids who have HIV or who have lost their parents to HIV. And we took that home on 5.5 years ago.
And tell us about some of the conditions when you first went there, and why you said, I've got to do something.
It was sad. It was a very sad place. Their kitchen consisted of 3 freestanding gas burners. There was 107 children there. And May Thill because of the poverty in the region, that she had limited and inconsistent funding. And when she had the funding, she had to make a choice as to whether she put that into food, medicine, or medical care with the kids going to hospital. But she couldn't do all three. And without all three, the children would die. And I was with her recently, and she's been up there for over 33 years now, and she said in that time she's buried 1,027 children. And when I met her in March of 2010, the children were dying, and they were dying on a monthly basis, and then when things got bad, they were dying on a weekly basis. But since we've taken Home Hug on, and we've taken responsibility for that, and we support Mayfield to allow her to provide the level of care that she can, not one child has died from HIV in that last 5.5 years. And
goes to show money makes a difference.
Oh, it does. And it's just supporting her to do the work that she wants to do and needs to do, and the consistency of the income as well. Because it's no good just building one home, as I started the conversation with, because the recurrent costs continue. And as any family knows, the costs are there all the time. And even when it's no longer in the front of mind of people, or no longer on television, or these recurrent costs continue, and providing the certainty in funding has allowed her to bring the changes to the lives of the children, and to the point where now, Dale, they don't even have AIDS. And I took an Australian doctor over there a bit over 2 years ago who looked at all their medical reports, and he said, you can see the change in their CD4 count. And because that's risen above what's the limit of 300, they said they don't have AIDS. And the reason it's risen is just because of the improved health standard. So it's a wonderful thing that's happened there. And we've got the other projects across Thailand. We've opened a new home this year at a place called Chanthaburi, and it has 20 kids in it. It's a wonderful home for kids in need of that community, and that will grow. And then we have a place at Kanchanaburi, Chumpon, and
so there's 7 locations, and how many kids altogether?
We've got over 300 kids who are with us every night, and then there's
and that's
outreach.
That's all the accommodation, all the food, medicines required, education.
That's right. Yeah,
complete care.
Complete. And our recurrent costs are now up over $1.5 million a year Australian, just to sustain all of the projects that we're running.
And you're also investing in sustainable projects around the homes as well, and also helping children further their education or get into jobs. Tell us about some of the opportunities that Hands is creating after they eventually leave the home.
Yeah, that's right. So the focus is, as I said, proudly we have 29 kids at uni, but we also acknowledge that not every child wants to go to university or will have the capacity. So we're also looking at different opportunities for them. Sustainability is a big part of what we do, and I know that after the last Blueprint ride, you took the crew up and did some work at our rubber plantation, and that was something that we bought early on in our existence, and it brings income, employment opportunities, and each project that we take on, each project that we start, we look and say, what are the opportunities to bring income into it through that? So at Bantham Now Chai, our original home, we have a sewing room, and employs local ladies, and the profits come back into the community. But we're getting commercial orders from here in Australia through supporters such as Miele and Beko and Electrolux. They're spending $50,000-$70,000 Australian at a time, 50 or 70,000 Australian dollars at a time on orders that bring income in. So there's a real diversity, there's a real focus on what we can do to bring education, sustainability, and reduce the reliance upon donations.
Now, if someone's watching this and they want to contribute, there's something for people at every level, right? So tell us about some of the ways in which they can contribute. And they can also go to the website, handsacrossthewater.org.au, sponsor a ride, sponsor a child. Tell us about some of them.
Yeah, one of the things I think that we had a board meeting for a couple of days, and I said, we need to define ourselves to be relevant, is not be seen as just another charity, but as a service provider. And the growth for us is creating opportunities for people who want to be involved to have a meaningful experience. Because what we know is if we can provide you as a potential donor, supporter, business owner with a meaningful experience, that's not just about feel good, well then you'll stay and the funds will come. So there's lots of opportunities in ways to get involved, and that depends upon the level of engagement someone likes. And as you said, they can ride a bike, they can go on a trek, they can be involved in our latest opportunity, which is a social venture program. So it's a leadership program where I take 20 people into the slums of Bangkok, and we go up to our home at Home Hug and spend time up there with the kids, and it's a really strong leadership program with some amazing outcomes, and it's one of the best things I've done in Thailand. But each of these opportunities has fundraising attached to it, so it brings income for us, but it provides meaning back to those who want to be involved. And people can be involved without fundraising. We run a task force where they can go and contribute to work at one of our projects. They can sponsor a child, they can go and visit for an hour or a day, or they can even stay for a month.
Now, there's lots of charities out there, and like you said, lots of worthy causes. What's different about supporting Hands Across the Water as opposed to maybe other charities out there?
You're right. There are amazing charities and all doing amazing things. And we're just one of 600,000 charities and not-for-profits that exist within Australia. And the position that we take is, I guess there's a few things that might put us outside of the normal charities. One is the commitment that we have to not spending any donors' money on administration and fundraising. And we have a structure, a company that undertakes commercial activities, that underwrites the operating expenses of the charity. I don't take any salary out of Hands or any costs out of Hands, and so that's something that sets us apart, is the structure that allows us to grow and maintain that 100 cents in the dollar. The other focus I'd suggest is the focus that we have on providing these meaningful opportunities, these shared experiences that build the engagement. And as I said, if we can focus half our energy on creating good, meaningful experiences, reasons for people to engage, then our growth here is sustained, which allows our growth in Thailand to be sustained.
Fantastic. And tell us about one of those experiences, which is the bike ride, and we'll talk more about that a little bit later. Just give us a quick little taste of what it's like and why people should consider going on this ride.
Well, it's the best thing I can say is an experience you have to experience to understand it. I've done it 14 times now.
And this is a major fundraiser, right?
It is. And it started in 2009, and there were 17 people. In January of this year, so that's 6 years after we started, we had 127 people on the road. We raised $1.4 million. 76% of the riders were return riders. Now, they come back because there's a reason, because of the value that they take out of it. And when we launched the January rides this year, in March of last year, March of 2014, 2 of the rides sold out in 90 minutes. So we're on to something. And we see that with the growth of people doing their own rides, and as Business Blueprint doing a ride, and you've seen the growth. And the reason people come, there might be different reasons why they come. The reasons they return is because of the value they personally get out of the ride.
Let's talk about the future, and what are some of the needs moving forward, and where is the money going to be going over the next few years?
Yeah, so the future for Hands is a number of things. One is that we've got a couple of building projects that we're working on right now. One is a redevelopment of the Bantham Nam Chai site, and how we can bring about some changes that will increase opportunities for education, for income, increase the experience for people who are turning up, and also protect the kids. Because one of the things is lots of people turn up to see and visit, which is beautiful, but we've got to remember this is a home. And this is a kid's home, and they deserve the privacy and the respect, and they deserve their own space. And so we're looking at a redevelopment of the site which will meet a number of these objectives. So that's at Bantham Nam Chai. We're still working on the site at Sirin, which Business Blueprint has supported, and we built a new home there, and we're about to build a new kitchen and dining room and study room and library for the kids out there. So that's really exciting to see where that will come to. And then further on, we're also looking at an education centre, which is a partnership. When my vision is to create something like a hotel training school. and that's probably 5 years or so, a bit longer away. But our commitment long term is around investing heavily in the education and the opportunities, because what we know, well, certainly what I believe, is the true measure of our success. It's not in the money we've raised, it's not in the homes we've built, or it's not even in the number of kids that are at university. The true measure of our success will be when the kids go into meaningful and well-paid careers, because then that changes their life and it will change the lives of generations that follow. And it's no good us providing a lovely home experience for 5, 7 or 15 years for these kids and then them going out and just going back into very or low-paid labour. That's not going to change the lives of their children. So if we're looking forward, it's about changing the lives of the future generations, and that's providing these meaningful opportunities for the kids.
Fantastic. And if people want to find out more about Hands Across the Water, go to the website.
Absolutely.
handsacrossthewater.org.au is where you go. Peter, it's been a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much. And I would also highly recommend Peter's book as well. It's available on the website called Hands Across the Water. We're going to wrap up this short but very powerful interview with Peter Baines. Thanks so much for chatting to us. And again, if you'd like to find out more about Hands Across the Water, visit handsacrossthewater.org.au. Thanks so much.